This episode of Truth Table is brought to you by our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Get it where all books are sold.
Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us. Hey y'all, welcome to Truth Table, Midwives of Culture for Grace and Truth. I'm Ekemini.
And I'm Christina.
This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table, C. How you doing, girl?
I'm tired.
Hilarious.
Don't stop till you nap enough. I'm tired. I'm tired out here. How are you doing?
I feel the itis coming on because I just had a very delicious meal. But I'm good. Happy to be at this table with you. Happy to be in person. Filming video.
Listen, y'all, this is indeed a privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's happening? It is happening right now, real time. So glad to be at this table with you. As we're talking, trying to figure out, okay, what do we want to talk about?
Well, I think
what's on the table?
Well, something that's going to make many people tired, but I think we need to grapple with the reality that we are in 2023, and before we know it, we will be in 2024, and not just 2024. We'll be at November 2024. You know what happens in November 2024?
Yes,
it's the next presidential election, and also also known as when the people act a fool.
My goodness, it wasn't always
also
the case,
what it's called. Well, I think it's always been a little sketchy.
Some years,
but
more than
recently
others.
it has come to a whole new level of shenanigans. So that's what's on the table. We're talking about gearing up mentally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, economically for the next presidential election.
2024 presidential elections. Woo! Honestly, the thought of it, y'all, I could take a nap.
But can you nap your way to revolution?
No, we cannot. We cannot.
Although you do need to rest. I'm with that. I'm with the rest. But we're gonna have to plot for good, y'all. Plot for good. Strategize for good.
Okay, so why, when we talk about the presidential election and gearing up for it and whatnot, and how we feel about just thinking about it, why is it fatigue that comes to mind?
Why do we feel tired when we talk about?
Why do we feel tired?
So I mean, I think of we are
more than in recent history. Because we have been through several presidential elections as adults. So why this one more so than others? Yes.
Well, first of all, we are political people. We enjoy a good political talking point and conversation. We chatted up about politics. So we're not anti-political. You meet some people that are like, well, I just don't get into politics. I don't have much, I'm like, oh, no. We're alive on the planet. There are thoughts, things impact us.
I'm voting for Jesus.
Jesus is not on the ballot. Stop it.
On the ballot. Stop it. Don't diminish his lordship.
My word, people. Stop. My word. Cop out. So all that to say is that we're not anti-political discussion. So that in of itself is not what I think is fatiguing. I think over the last decade, we have just seen, I have seen just high levels of foolery.
Yeah.
Particularly from the American Christian community, broadly speaking, but also subgroups that have just been concerning. It's just, and I think my fatigue is an anticipation of what I know from the data and the trends and from just anecdotally what has happened as we move into 2024. It's
looking too good.
It's going to be a thing. They're going to cut up. That's what I think my fatigue is about. How would you describe yours?
Ooh, I just feel like I'm still trying to recover from the 2016 election.
Why? What was wrong with that? That was just great.
Exhausting. So exhausting.
Traumatizing.
Hillary Clinton win the popular vote, Trump take it home, because the Electoral College needs to be abolished.
Oh my word. But if we did that, then we would have to really consider one vote per person. And
imagine that in a democracy?
This is an oligarchy. I keep trying. It's an aspirational democracy.
Oh my goodness!
It is a representative oligarchy. Is what it actually is. But.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. So I think about that election, and that was just really, really exhausting. Just from the moment that Trump announced and the way that he announced and derided a whole community during his campaign.
He came out the gates, came down the escalator, cutting a fool.
So, it's been a chaotic roller coaster ever since that man announced his presidency and then actually was installed as president.
Yeah. I think there's... Yeah.
And then January 6th in 2021. And then it's like, then we been talking about fascism since 2016 and people thought we were being paranoid. I'm like, what?
I know.
And now it has been wreaking havoc. I am like, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Yeah. And we're meant to be tired. It's by design.
Yeah.
And it's working because listen, I'm tired.
Yes. I do not think of myself as a hyperbolic person. I think I am... I don't think that I'm overly dramatic when I say like something is terrible.
Yeah.
But I remember people kind of gaslighting us as an expression of and I would say rooted in their both misogyny, their racism, their disrespect, their ageism, not knowing exactly even how old we were. But
commitment to the Republican Party.
But when Truth Table first launched, I remember people being like, oh, this is over the top. This is, like our political critiques. And I was like, no, it's really terrible. It's really bad. And we started, when we kicked off our very first series was the Resistance series. And I try to remind people of that if they hear us say something political and they're like, oh, I don't know about that. I'm like, the very first episode was God Help Us. The citizens are clowning again to the 30 million plus of them.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We are not new to this. We are true to this. So it is like a trip that's like, okay, woo, it's time for another presidential election. I feel like I still have not recovered from this one.
From 2020.
Right.
Did you forget that one?
Oh,
there's 2016, 2020.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I'm thinking the presidential one, but yeah.
Yeah, that was the presidential. Yes.
Yeah, you mean the pandemic?
This is your trauma fog brain. Yes, we've had 2016 was when Trump beat Clinton. 2020 is where we had the Biden-Harris ticket.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm. You forgot that? Mm-hmm. Biden is now the president.
Yeah. It's just been a lot. I don't know. It's just all exhausting. I'm like, oh.
Because
it just always feels very...
You know why? Yeah. Because January 6th also happened.
That's true. Yeah, actually. Yeah, you're right. Why does it feel like this?
Yeah, when there was literally a civil war.
There's also the pandemic. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's been a lot that's been happening in between. It's just... It's been chaotic.
Yeah.
So it's been chaotic. So it's like, what do we do? How do we think about these things? How do we prepare? What do we do?
My.
I mean, yeah.
What do we want to do differently? That could be another thing too. I will tell you this. From a physical and mental health standpoint, I cannot respond in the same way that I did in 2016 again.
Well, yeah, we're in a different place now. I mean, what's done is, Pandora's box has been opened. There's nothing.
Intellectually, I will respond the same way. But I think for those of us who had an awareness of how this is devastating, people are going to die. Like we said that this is a big deal. Elections matter. You just can't get weird and be like, well, I'm just not worried about it. Like we have to give an account for. Again, we don't know all the answers. I don't know the ins and outs of any of these people's hearts. But with the information that's on the table, we have to make prudent decisions that center the people with the least social power amongst us. And when we don't do that, we can't even fathom just how wild the ride is going to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I think when I think about what do we do, how would I engage differently? I think that I just can. I am actually a news junkie, but I really can't engage as much, as I had in the past, because I think I just have to be able to protect my mental health, my stamina. I think we're going to need a lot of resilience, I think, to get through this next.
We have to complete the loop of social movements.
Yeah.
Like you can't start off like fight the power and then you're like, and what were we talking about again? Like we're going to have enough energy to stay the course. Yeah, you're going to have enough energy, to stay the course. And I think also part of why it's so fatiguing is that I can just see things before they happen. Oftentimes, not always, but that's just kind of having what it means to have like a prophetic gift. And so I can see some things that happened way before they happen. And so when you say it, when you catch the vision, people will call you all types of names. They'll say you're not saying it right. They'll gaslight you. And then, time always proves. Right. Time is the ultimate judge of whether a prophet is true or false. Because it's in time that whether that word was true. That's right.
Or whether it was false. It's time that tests the veracity of that word. But it's hard when you have that gift and you can see things from afar off and you're like, no, stop, don't. Let's turn around. Let's go the other way. People are like, no, we're going to keep going. You know what you're talking about. And then we keep going. I'm like, okay, well, all right, I tried. Oh, all right. Self-destruction. That's where we're headed. And now we're airing this.
That's what the song said. Unfortunately, 1988.
That's where we are now. So I think that's also what's exhausting is being able to have some foresight. And it's like, oh, why the heck I have some foresight?
I would say that
sometimes ignorance really is bliss sometimes.
Yeah, but you don't even have to have like spiritual discernment foresight to know. Because we've had, there really is enough like data. Not even like.
Well, I don't think you need to have the spiritual discernment and foresight now, where we are right now, post Trump.
But I think you needed it in 2016.
I know.
I think
you know why? Because this was Trump that was not Central Park 5. People didn't think of him as Central Park 5 Trump. They thought about him as the Apprentice Trump that they knew on reality. You know what I mean? They still there was a little bit of a rebranding for him. So people saw him like every week on NBC, the Apprentice. So I think there was some like, oh, how bad can this be? It could be real bad. And that's
in a lot of ways, for me, Trumpism as an ideology, as a political philosophy, is so much bigger than Donald Trump.
Oh yeah.
So I agree with you that he had been rebranded into the celebrity business apprentice guy and marketing person and whatever. He's, commercialized and not the incredibly insensitive person who took out a one-page advertisement calling for the lynchings of teenage boys in the Central Park 5 kid. Like that's facts, receipts, evidence.
Yes.
His personality, his character, the way he rolls, slumlord. So you're right. They didn't know that there was rebranding. But I do think the philosophy that undergirds what we now describe as Trumpism, for anybody who was attentive to just, I don't know, basic racism 101 in America.
Which apparently not everybody is.
Hello. What is happening? I think some of us knew like, yes, will America not be tricked, but will they willingly elect a reality TV star who is known for mistreating people with dozens of sexual assault and harassment allegations? Dozens. Not a couple, dozens. Will they be like, yeah, this is the right thing to do?
And yes, they will.
And yes, they will.
And yes, they did.
And yes,
they will again.
And listen.
Because he's actually, they're saying that he has the political, power to still become the nominee.
Well,
they say he may not.
He is currently, despite the indictment, he is currently
and the arrest,
the top candidate on the Republican ticket right now.
Help us, Lord.
I think that should be shameful. I don't know. And listen, I don't know what to tell people like that. That just, And so I know people are like, Brene Brown's, Dr. Brown's work around shame. And, people are like, no, we can't embrace shame. So there are different types of shame. And there is sometimes a need for a communal shame, a communal
there's some redemptive uses for shame. There are some.
There's going to need to be some sackcloth
from other cultures
and ashes. I think there's going to need to be, and we actually never had that moment. We've never had the
we repent.
Yeah. Yeah.
We ain't seen it yet. The wholesale repentance that should have come post-Trump, post-COVID, where we are right now.
January 6th, I was thinking about this the other day. January 6th happens, and it is lamentful and it's sad that there is a woman who lost her life during January 6th. I mean, life is precious, sad.
That's right.
We all know there could have been a whole lot more people killed that day, including sitting senators, and the vice president of the United States. Like, all of this could have happened. That was not that was not dramatics. That was that really was going down. And now, even to this day, you have people who minimize that. We're in Nashville recording right now, and we just had, not too long ago, people comparing the protests that happened related to gun safety to January 6th.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
In what universe?
I mean, really?
In what universe?
So sometimes I do recognize that some of this is political theater designed for polarization. It's strategic. So I get that. But then within that, you have the folks who are saying it because they know it's a lie, and they're trying to they're
gin up there.
Yeah. But then but amongst them, you have the people who really believe it. And that's my concern.
The ones that buy it. Yeah.
We do have some true believers amongst us. I mean, they scale the walls of the Capitol. Like, the true believers are taking fire extinguishers and beating the Capitol Police.
You mean the true believers that believe in
conspiracy theory?
Conspiracies. Okay.
Yes.
Just trying to be clear, people.
Yeah. And who overlap with people of faith.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the zeal that they take for their nationalism is comparable to the zeal that they ought to have for a faith tradition, right? So it's fanatical.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Whew, y'all. We're gonna need some interventions. We're gonna need some divine intervention. So we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk some more about preparing ourselves for this upcoming presidential election, making sure we're protecting our witness. How can we do this?
Amen.
We're going to find out when we come back. So don't go nowhere.
Our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation, is making waves and shifting culture. I closed this book feeling like I had just partaken in a multi-course meal, filled with grace and the courage to carry on. And I believe you'll finish this book feeling the same way. Morgan Harper Nichols, artist and poet. Buy Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation at our website or wherever books are sold.
All right, y'all, we are back to talk about how are we going to prepare for this upcoming presidential election and maintain our witness.
AKA known as don't cuss nobody out. Don't, become just negligent with your words, your time, your body.
And the brain fog is real. So listen, that's why I was like, I can't follow every jot and tittle. Traumatized. But because we really did experience a cultural trauma, though. I think, and I think that sometimes people don't always have that language or think about it, but we've been through a lot. Collectively.
The community of the Americans.
And these yet to be United States have been through a lot.
Yes.
Whether you've been complicit or not, it is a cultural trauma. Whether you brought it on by voting for him or not. Seriously, it's just we've collectively experienced this. So I just okay, so let's talk about church, because when back in 2016, when Trump was elected and installed and all that, there was a mass exodus from white evangelical churches. Let's be clear, specific, right? And then the pandemic brought on something else. But
Mm-hmm.
2016, pre-pandemic, there was a mass exodus of people of color, so this would be Black, Indigenous, people of color leaving more so white evangelical spaces because it was white evangelicals by and large who elected Trump to be president in 2016.
White people in general, but disproportionately so.
Yes.
White people who identify as Christians.
Evangelical. So a lot of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color left those church spaces and maybe went to others. Some never returned.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, the pandemic hit and everybody went online. That did not help. So it's been, the church has actually been through a lot of shifts over the last, where are we? So over the last 6+ years, I'd say, So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, and since 2016, you've also had Me Too, Church Too movement.
Right. That's right.
You've had pretty prominent, known, almost celebrity status, religious figures, have awareness of certain scandals have come to light and, making mainstream news. So, all of those things impact people and whether or not they feel like there is a place for them, let alone a safe place for them within Christian communities. So, I get why there's been an exodus. I get why there's been exhaustion. And even with the ex-evangelical white movement out of some of these spaces, because some of that is embarrassment, frustration, some spiritual abuse and harm. I think all of that is in there. But I also think some of that also trickled down into Black America, particularly Black young millennial and Z, their expectations of what church should be and what church should talk about. And I don't think people talk enough about that. But even though those churches are separate, the churches are largely highly segregated. That doesn't mean our educational experiences are, and it doesn't mean that our online experiences are completely segregated either. And so I do think there were younger African Americans who started asking specific questions of the Black church in a more forceful way. It's some long overdue, some necessary and needed, but also I think in fairness, some also informed and inspired by white ex-evangelical.
It's not only just you receiving, but you also giving to that community, right? You being there. By you being there, people benefit because you have gifts, you have particular talents, you have particular vantage point, you have particular skills, right? That kind of help to strengthen and edify and equip the members of the body and the church, and strengthen overall by your presence too. I think people need to know that, it's not that you only have something to receive, you also have something to give, and that gift is yourself, so we do need you. And so I do think that the church will be important. Finding a good, healthy church, let me say it that way, a good, healthy church that preaches the gospel, that actually lives the gospel out, that is on the side of the poor, the oppressed, doesn't malign them and beat them up for being poor, which is oftentimes a trope in the modus operandi of Americans in this place, making sure that you can find a good, healthy church, that really is on the side of the marginalized, which is who God is for and who God stands with, and I know it's hard to find a good church.
It's a theme throughout Scripture.
It's a whole theme. And I know it's hard to find a church, so I don't say that as if that's easy. I am not saying it's easy, especially these days. I think it's really hard to find some good, humble pastors that really are about the business of the local church, preaching the word, studying the word, studying to show themselves approved, and then also going after the flock, going after the sheep, and tending to them and making sure that they're okay and knowing, what's going on in their lives. With the systems and
capacity to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So. So I think it's going to be interesting this go around. I do hope that people learn lessons and that they're in a good church community where they don't have to feel as if their church community has betrayed them in the voting booth and left them out, hung them out high and dry, you know, and left them fending for themselves in the way that they were in 2016, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, so, I don't know. I just hope that we learn, that many people have learned from that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it that we have difficult choices. I mean, it's not like this is always easy. I mean, I can critique probably every political party and all the things, but I'm just not buying that all the things are equally bad in all the same ways, and the both sidisms, and you know, everything is bad.
Come on,
yeah,
y'all.
Everything can be bad, but everything ain't bad in the same way.
There are levels. There are
levels to this, and there are some things that are just urgent that we have to attend to now. And so I think that so the people who are just kind of like, they throw their hands in the air and they're just like, well, I just can't engage at all, and I don't like our 2-party system, and I'm like, yeah, I agree, ditto. I have to deal with reality. I mean, what is happening? Like you don't get to just be like, well, I don't like it, so it doesn't exist. What? I don't like the system either. I don't like living in a representative oligarchy, but I do. And so I have to do the best I can to engage it.
But yeah, I do think that it's going to be really, it's going to be important for us to be able to, I don't know, be a people that know that we ought to exercise our right to vote. I think we should. I think that's also good stewardship of what our ancestors have done. First of all, to give us the right, you know, to vote and to
Black
advocate,
Americans,
to work for that.
women, name it.
That's really, really important. But I also I think we have to know, and we have to be able to look to God to know, like, okay, God, ultimately, you are sovereign, you know, and that my salvation is not in the DNC. Okay, it's just not, you know,
or the Green Party.
These are the Green or the Republican. These are just a means, you know, of grace to be able to get this government to function and to work on behalf of the people. Now, whether it's doing that in an equitable way and in the ways that we want to, that's a whole other story. Yeah. I do think that we're also contending with, in this upcoming election, is disillusionment. And I think probably even greater disillusionment probably from previous elections, because they've seen what happened in 2016, because they see that sometimes, you know, they just get our vote and then we don't really get the promises, the campaign promises don't come to fruition. We still don't have our student loan debt canceled, and we know why, because we have the racial analysis.
Yes.
But also, I think that
it will be January 6th all over these streets.
Exactly. Again, and so, and then not to mention, like, for millennials, you know, I think many of us still remember Bush and Gore. And what happened there?
Oh, so listen, certainly anybody older than millennial, definitely.
Yeah, because that was the first time that was the first election I got to. That was the first election I got to vote in, and so we're like, you know.
I know.
Do you think that was my vote matter?
That was
because y'all still do what you want to do.
It was wild.
That was wild. That was our first introduction into voting. You know, and so when you think about that, you have a whole generation where this is the reality for them. Like, that was their first election, and that's what they experienced.
I mean, it's pretty well known the way that the vote worked. I mean, how the popular vote actually went in that election.
Can people?
And that's years
what you're
ago.
asking is, can people say the truth?
Can people say, we're going to have to deal with
tell the truth,
regardless of which party you like. We're going to have to sit with that.
Yeah. So I think all that's all in the, you know, the backdrop, you know, and then not to mention all the multiple crises and economic crises we've been through, and all the things, like, you know, so they're like, so people do go in thinking, well, what's the point? Why should I do this? I think that if you're one of those people, I think that ultimately the reason why we show up, I think, is because of the sacrifices that our people have already been through in order for us to vote, but also ultimately because we are kingdom citizens. And because we are kingdom citizens, what it means to steward our kingdom citizenship is to be able to steward our earthly citizenship here in the U.S. And one of those ways that we do that is by voting. And I would argue voting in a way that benefits the marginalized. And so I think that is also an implication for us. So I don't think we don't get to abdicate our responsibility. You're not some good Christian by sitting out from voting. That actually makes you cowardly. Make a choice. It's hard. Make a choice. The options are not great. Make a choice.
And they're also very different.
They're very different. Make a choice. What is happening? Oh my God, do you think it's some virtue? It's not.
It's not a virtue. But I will say this, and so
centrism is not a virtue.
But I'm saying we have a very different socialization.
And not to mention,
we have a very different socialization process, though.
Yeah, okay.
There are people who really have been told that they are not Christians by Christian leaders in their spaces.
Oh yeah.
If they make the wrong choice, even though I'm a product of a particular Black church tradition that was certainly definitely in the 80s and the 90s, overwhelmingly Democrat voters, like unapologetically so. I don't remember ever having a pastor or anybody who I look up to or am shaped by in willful discipleship like put that kind of pressure on me to be like, you have lost your faith. You are not a believer if you don't take XYZ position or if you don't vote for this candidate. I do know that there are some people who are a part of traditions where on the nose, people say those types of things and mean it. And these are the kind of people that they actually look up to. Now with me, I'm probably not going to look up to you if you actually think that salvation hinges on my agreement with your political candidate. I'm probably like, okay, well, you're not probably the best person to disciple me. I'm not going to take your Christian card, but I just know that you're not going to be an educational influence on me. You're not going to be
someone I learn from.
Exactly. And I think we have to be able to separate and be able to say, this is a person who I pray for, I'm grateful for, I want them to be blessed. But that's not the voice that I'm going to be learning from or being shaped by.
And it's okay.
And it is okay. But in fairness to people who are so conflicted and feel like, I don't know how to vote, I don't know what to do. Some of them really do have in them.
That's true.
That socialization process of, if you get this wrong, you are a bad Christian. You're whatever. And as hard as I critique Trump voters, and because I feel like it's pretty obvious we don't want to give him power. This seems very obvious to me. I can't take their Christian card. I mean, salvation is not contingent upon your political affiliation. It does say something about our political alliances and allegiances. It does say something about how we see our neighbor. That's true. It does say something about how we see our responsibility or how we understand what's happening for other people, right? It does speak to that.
Even how we view other people.
Even how we
see them.
All of that is on the table, right? Even people I know who might take a view that says like, well, it's important that it's important that we support people who have resources and capital because they're going to be able to support people who are poor. So by supporting those, it's millions of them.
It never trickles down.
But I know, but this, exactly.
Trickle down economics.
Listen, trickle down empathy does not exist. It does not exist. Now, we know that because we're marginal, we represent marginalized groups.
Exactly.
But for other people who are outside of that space or who are deeply identify and long to be like the people outside that space, they really do. I think the people are sincere. There are people who are really sincere that are like, no, we want to make sure that millionaires and billionaires are able to keep all the resources that they have because they're the job creators. They're going to help the poors. Because you know how much they care. I mean,
that's right. Because capitalism saves us. Right?
Listen. So that's but I at least try to understand that perspective. Yeah, because that is really where the people are, and there are churches that do straight up teach that.
Yeah. So, I'm just trying to I get into a good, healthy church. You can find, listen, I know it's not easy, but there are so many churches, y'all. We really we don't have an excuse. Yeah. And now, of course, I'm not trying to minimize hurt, anybody that's experienced spiritual abuse or church hurt.
What's most important is get your healing.
Get your healing. Get your healing first. Get what we need to do. Yeah. And then find yourself a good, healthy church, right? And so I think those are some good practical things I can think of. Of course, presidential elections are only one way of one little on-ramp of political engagement.
Yeah.
Of course, local politics is really, really important.
Very
local
important.
elections, who we elect for judges and sheriffs and all types of other ways that we can engage politically. Of course, joining civic organizations. If you're part of a BGLO, then getting active within those organizations as well. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can be politically engaged, but I think can also guard ourselves from at least try to guard ourselves from most of the chaos, because it's chaos.
Yes, it is chaos. Well, and to maintain a commitment to love people who are going to see this very differently. I mean, there have been so many hard lessons. I do think that people have walked away trying to learn, though, right? Obviously not on the scale of what we can look to and say, like, these are the shortcomings, the concerns that we have. But there are ministries that have responded with like trauma-informed preaching and practices. There are churches who have opted to leave certain fellowships and denominations because they felt they were not best equipped to help them in loving people well. And so I know personally, right? And we can see that people have made some changes in responses to hard lessons learned over the last several years. And then based on to what extent that church has the resources, because some of this stuff, there's a matter of funding and support and know-how, right, to make this happen. There are churches that have attempted to show up and to do something. And of course, there are churches that have started over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And the very birth of the ministry is tied to wanting a new way of doing church or a return to a way of being the church that is more mindful of people that are coming in as being deeply wounded, the church as refuge.
Yes.
So reclaiming that, but it's going to take some work.
Yeah, sure.
And so even when we critique the church, or when I critique the church, I still try to be really, really mindful that there are people doing great work.
Yes.
Sacrificial work
that goes unnoticed. And they don't have all the bells and whistles. They don't have, the best big budgets,
sound systems, AV, musicians, you name it. Or they might have that. I mean, I don't knock something just because it's good too. I mean, sometimes we have this thing where it's like if a church is too polished, Jesus must not be there, But I think it's possible that even if it's storefront that doesn't have very much financially speaking, or whether it's some mega churches, they're much easier for me to critique mega churches are because they kind of have a too big to fail philosophy with them. But regardless of the size of the church, there really are genuine ministers of the gospel who are trying to respond sensitively to the pain that has happened and the pain that they themselves have also experienced. Yeah. Because leaders are a part of the church. Yes, leaders are a part of the church.
And they also experience church.
No.
They do.
Absolutely.
We're going to need a lot of patience. We're going to need a lot of grace. We're going to need a lot of wisdom and discernment.
And passports.
Passports are always in order.
Which, by the way, is just
and I would say monetary prudence too.
Oh yeah, you need to be very wise with your resources. Yeah, to whatever extent you can be. I mean, we might not have none right now, but whatever you got, be very wise with it. Because I think we're going to have to make some really smart decisions with our money.
Yes, exactly. In light of all the inflation that we've been experiencing, the crisis, that's been bubbling within the banking sector, we have to stay ready so we ain't got to get ready.
And at the end of the day, entrust ourselves to God.
Well, thank y'all for taking a seat at the table with us this week. Let's keep the conversation going. Man, tweet us your thoughts and your ideas and your suggestions for how we can prepare for this upcoming presidential election.
My.
And uphold our witness. Yeah. Tell us, seriously, email us at asktruthstable@gmail.com because we want to learn from you too, okay? Don't forget to rate and review the show on iTunes and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. We have been your hosts, Christina and Ekemini. We'll see you soon on the next Truth Table. Bye, y'all.